Hey everybody, my name is Ryan, and here at eTrailer we install, test fit, and review a lot of different parts. That way we could try to answer any questions those of you might have. And that's exactly what we're doing here today on our 2021 Toyota RAV4. We're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Curt 4-pole vehicle wiring harness. Getting wiring on your RAV4 is really important, not only if you plan on towing a trailer, but this is also going to work for those light-up accessories like a cargo carrier, for example. That way, when we have our wiring and we are pulling that trailer, the lighting signals will be sent back to the trailer, keeping us not only safe, but legal as well. One thing that's nice about this kit is it's flexible in how you want to mount or store your wiring. In our case, we have it routed out to the outside. And this is a great option, especially for those of you that plan on using it a lot. It's right here next to the hitch and super convenient to get to. There's a lot of different ways you can mount it, many different brackets and things like that. In our case, our customer chose to use this mounting box. That way when you're not using it, you can put it inside, keep it stored that way out of the elements. But one thing you're also able to do is keep the wiring inside of your vehicle. That way when you're ready to use it, you can open up your hatch, pull it out, and plug it into your trailer. So that's a great option as well. For those of you that don't plan on using it a whole lot, by keeping it inside, you're going to keep it out of the elements and keep it protected. So something else that's pretty nice with this setup is the fact that it uses a module box. And what that module box is going to do is protect your RAV4's factory wiring if a short or an electrical issue were to occur on the trailer side. Now for me, that would really put my mind at ease, especially on these newer vehicles that have really complex electrical systems, and I personally wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize them. And not to mention, it'll also work with hybrid models. Matter of fact, we have a hybrid here, and honestly, they're almost a little easier to set up on the hybrids, since this does require you to hook up a power wire to your battery. The hybrid's battery's in the back, and so you don't have to do a whole lot of routing. So just something I thought that was worth mentioning. So at the end of the day, a well-built wiring kit that's going to get the job done. Now, as far as installing it goes, it's really not too complicated. I will say it is time-consuming, and some parts can be a little tricky to kind of get your hands in and work. Some things are a little bit tight, but as long as you take your time, you shouldn't have any issues getting it done at home. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and hook it up together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the back of our RAV4, and first thing we're going to need to do is open up our hatch and remove the floor coverings inside. So this big one here in the center simply just slides right out. Set this off to the side. And then we can grab the panels here on each side and pop those out. These just lift up and off. Same thing with this one. We'll set these to the side as well. Now what we can do is remove this center threshold here. So what you're going to do is start at one end, and you can pull up on it. That should release the clips. If it's pretty tight, like ours is, what you can do is take a trim tool, kind of get underneath it as well, and kind of help work it up that way. Usually once you get it kind of started though, comes out relatively easy. We'll just work our way all the way down. So as you can see, these are the fasteners that were holding the threshold in place, just to kind of give you a better idea of what's going on underneath our threshold. Now that we have it off though, we can go ahead and put it to the side. On our passenger side, we're going to have this compartment here that we need to remove. I do want to mention our RAV4 is a hybrid model. With that being said, if yours is not a hybrid model, it might be set up a little bit different, so just keep that in mind. However, to get this panel off, you can kind of just pull up on it. Work your way around and pop it out. and set it to the side. With that panel out of the way, you can see it exposed our battery here. And I just kind of want to elaborate on the hybrid model and non-hybrid. So in our case, ours is a hybrid. Our battery's here, and that's where eventually we'll hook up our power wire to. I do know for sure on non-hybrid models that the battery will not be back here. However, I'm not sure if that panel that we just pulled out is still in place. With that being said, if yours is a non-hybrid and you don't have this panel, don't worry about it. If you do have this panel, go ahead and pull it out just like we did ours. Now what we can do, if we look down here, we're going to have a hook. We need to remove that, and we can achieve that by pulling out this 10mm bolt. I'm going to do this for the driver's side as well. Now back over here on the driver's side of our vehicle, if you look right here, we're going to see a push pin style fastener. You need to pull that out. Take a flathead screwdriver and pry underneath the head of it. You should be able to grab it and pull everything out, including the base. Once you have this removed, you can do the same thing over on the passenger side. What we can do now is actually start to kind of pull our panel back, and that way we can have some room to get to the factory connectors behind there. So what we can do, if you take your weather stripping and just separate it, you can just pull it back. I'll make everything a little easier. And if you grab the panel and start to work it down, we can release it. And what you heard there was the clips releasing. So these are really similar to the threshold clips. If you kind of peel it back, you can see them. If they are giving you a little trouble, you can always come in with your trim tool, just like the threshold, and kind of give them a little help. Once we get it about here, we really don't need to go too much further. We just need enough space that we can get our hand in there and get to the connector. So if you kind of hold our panel back and look inside, we're going to have a wiring connector, and the one that we're looking for is this one right here. We can remove it from its keeper. Kind of just put a little pressure on it, it'll pop out. And then we need to unplug the connector. So this portion here, if you push down on the center of that tab and pull the two apart, they will separate. Now what we can do is grab our new wiring. We're going to take the T connector in here that has the white, yellow, red, and brown wires going to it. And the way this is going to work is these are just going to plug into that factory connector that we unplugged. So this end will get plugged into here. And the other side will get plugged into there. At this point, we can grab our green wire with the T connector end, and this is going to get ran over to the passenger side and plugged into that connector. So just for the time being, I'll let these wires just kind of hang out. At the very end, we can come back, secure everything, clean it up. And what you're going to want to do is remove this panel too, the same exact way that we did the driver's side. And when we pull our panel back, we're able to locate that connector, which is this one here. Again, we'll just disconnect it just like the other side. We can take our T connector here and get the two ends all plugged in. Now what I'm going to do is locate a grommet here on the driver's side behind our panel that we can use to drop our four-way connector down through. That way we can eventually mount it up on the outside of our vehicle. Now keep in mind, you can actually keep this inside of the vehicle, out of the elements and things like that, but if you're going to use it a lot, mounting it to the outside is a little more convenient, to be honest. However, keep in mind, if you're not going to mount this on the outside, this step that we're going to do doesn't apply to you, and it's something that you're not going to have to worry about. So this is the grommet that I'm going to use, And since it is relatively tight in there and we won't be able to see a whole lot, what I'm going to do is just route our wiring down through there, and then I can show you what it looks like once I have that done. So I went ahead and dropped our 4-way wiring down, and this is what it looks like. So what I did is I just cut a small slit in that grommet. You want to be real careful if you do that because there is some factory wiring that goes through there as well. You don't want to nick it. And I just pushed our connector in through there. And then where I made that slit, I just used some RTV silicone to help keep everything nice and sealed up. You can pick that up right here at eTrailer. Now what we can do is hook up our black power wire here that's coming from our module box. The end is going to be pre-stripped. We're going to take one of the butt connectors. It's going to slide right over it, and then we can crimp it down. So once that's on there nice and tight, you can grab the bundle of power wire that comes with the kit, and we're going to strip back the insulation. And the wire's a good twist, and we can plug that into the other end of our butt connector here. So we'll get that in there, hold it in place, come back and crimp it down. Now at this point, I'm going to run this over to our battery, and I'll show you the path that I took to get there. So I ran our black wire pretty much the same exact way that we did our green T-connector wire. Just shot it right over, came up through here into our battery compartment, trimmed off that excess wire. Now I'm not going to secure everything just yet. I want to get everything hooked up and know that it's working before we get too carried away making everything look pretty. But with that being said, the other end of our power wire here, I stripped the insulation back. Going to take another butt connector, slide that on and crimp it down. The other end of the butt connector, we're going to hook up to the included fuse holder. Now when you do this, just make sure that the fuse is not installed into the holder. We're going to do that at the very end once everything's hooked up. So one end of the fuse holder will get plugged into the other end of that butt connector on our power wire here. We're going to crimp those together. The other end of the fuse holder is going to receive a ring terminal. So we'll slide that on, crimp it down, and then we can move over to our battery to get this hooked up. So if you look right here on our battery, we're going to have a red positive terminal cover. You can just lift up on that, and on this side of our terminal we're going to have a nut there that's a 10 millimeter. We can grab our wrench and remove that nut. Some of these nuts aren't designed to come completely off. It's kind of hard to tell until you try. We'll keep backing it off. So it feels like this one should come off no problem. If it gets hung up on you and doesn't want to come off easily, don't force it off. What you'd have to do is just cut a little opening in your ring terminal and sneak it in under the nut. But that's not the case, so it shouldn't be yours either. We'll just take our ring terminal, slide it over that stud, and reinstall the nut. Grab our 10 again and make sure it's nice and snug. And this is what it looks like once it is hooked up to the positive battery terminal. So what I went ahead and did was just use some electrical tape over our connection point here just for an extra layer of protection. And then we can go ahead and just close up that cap there. At this point we can go ahead and mount up our converter box here. What you want to do is clean the surface off real well. I use some rubbing alcohol, and we're going to take the included sticky tape, peel off one side of it, place it onto the converter box, give it a good push to make sure it's on there properly. And what I'm going to do is peel off this other backing paper after I find a nice flat surface behind our panel here to stick it to. So I'm going to find that surface, clean it off, and place our box on there. So I already cleaned off this area in here. I'll grab our converter box. And what we want to do is hold it in place for a good 15 or 20 seconds to ensure proper adhesion. What we're able to do now is hook up our ground, which is this white wire here with the pre-attached ring terminal. You want to secure this to a solid piece of metal. I'm just going to go right here in this area, and to do that I'm going to use the included self-tapping screw. So I'll get that lined up and ran down. So before we get too carried away kind of cleaning up all of our wiring and putting our panels back and everything else, it's a good idea to take your fuse and install it. That way we can check our wiring to make sure that it is working properly. Push that down and close up the cover there. Alright, so I went ahead and plugged in this little tester. That way you could check everything. I do suggest using one of these because if you plug into your trailer and you have an issue, it could always be on the trailer side, so using a tester can eliminate that. That being said, let's go ahead and try our left turn signal, our right turn signal, our brakes, as well as our running lights. So over here on the passenger side, I went ahead and secured our wiring, and this is how it looks. I did leave a little bit of extra length here. That way if you ever have to change your battery or anything like that, it'll be a lot easier. You can actually have some wire to work with. That being said, you can go ahead, re-secure this panel the opposite way. And we'll take our little compartment here, just pop that back into position as well. Now for our power wire and our green wire that runs from the driver's side to the passenger side, what I did is there's actually kind of a channel in here, kind of a little divot, and the wires fit in there perfectly, and I used some packing tape to secure them to the body of our vehicle. I just ran them all the way across like that. That way not only is the tape holding them in place, but they're not going to be in the way of our threshold either. And then over here on our driver's side, I just used some zip ties to clean everything up and secure it as well. At this point, we can go ahead and reinstall all of our interior panels the opposite way that we removed them. So as I mentioned before, our customer wanted their wiring mounted on the outside, so I just figured I'd show you how I actually routed it over and mounted it up. So here's where it comes out of that grommet that we ran it through. Just run it along through here, zip tied it along the way. You want to do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. Zip tied it again. And I just brought it to the top side of our hitch. Put a little bit of plastic wire loom on the part that you can see, just to help clean up the install look. And you can get this here at eTrailer. Zip tied it here. where I mounted it up to our holder. So our setup is actually a little bit different. Our connector end goes into this Hopkins mounting box where you can open it up, take it out, and plug it into your trailer. Now keep in mind you don't have to mount it like this. This is just one way out of many different options, and those are all available right here at eTrailer. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt 4-pole vehicle wiring harness on our 2021 Toyota RAV4.